Hi, I'm Malaya. I'm back with the Spirit of Wellness. We had a series of dance and movement classes, and we just got finished with an African Roots African dance class that I led to quite a number of people. We had a large crowd. We participated with Hashim, one of our drummers, and Brother Kumbo, and we rocked the house. You got to be sure to join us for the next festival and our Spirit of Wellness classes. Come on out. Get your groove on, get your African aerobics in, and come and join us and have a good time and stay healthy too. And hold it flat, hold flat. 2, 3, 4, 5. From your heart to the sky, from your heart to the sky, from your heart to the ground, 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 from your heart to your right, from the heart to your right, heart. And I want you to know that we're being grateful for the sun, the moon, the stars, the rain, and even the snow. We're grateful for the ground that we walk upon, play upon, but pray upon. Anyone's ever been in an earthquake? It's a very scary thing. And you know what? You have to be grateful for your friends, your family, your loved ones, your teachers, because without them, life is very, very difficult, okay? So I'm going to start singing the song, and I'm going to ask Greater Visions dance troupe, who's going to be here performing with us, along with many others, if they would come up and help me with this dance. And I need you all from your seats to help me as well, all right? So the song goes like this. Funga lafia, ashe ashe. You know it's singing. Funga lafia, ashe. Funga lafia, ashe ashe. Funga lafia, ashe ashe. Kawo elegwa, ashe ashe. Kawo elegwa, ashe ashe. Funga alafia, ashe ashe. I was trying to get y'all even on each side. Yeah, ashe ashe. We're here to greet you, ashe ashe. We're here to greet you, ashe ashe. Funga alafia, ashe ashe. Funga alafia, ashe ashe. Now, one of the things why you won't clap, because this is a village thing, you know what I'm saying? The village is here in America. Because Africa, we weren't born in Africa necessarily, but Africa is born in us. And so therefore we know we got that rhythm thing on, all right? So take a hand from your heart to the sky. Everybody, heart to the sky. Here we go, from your heart to the sky. From your heart to the ground. 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 From your heart, do it again, From your heart to the sky, From your heart to the sky, Heart to the sky, keep going from your heart to the sky, to the ground from your heart. Ground, from your heart. Heart to the ground. Heart. All right. With me, but we're going to do this together along with you in your seat. Because you see, when you're having some very special guests, not only put on your fabulous clothes and invite all your friends and have some great music and people around, but you also create a dance and welcome. Here we go.
Let me open everybody's mic.
All right.
Wasn't that something? Welcome to Theater Talk Live right here on Facebook Live and YouTube. And I'm Ken Hinton, your co-host, along with and Andre Meekins, and our special guest tonight, Miss Nana Malaya. Welcome.
Welcome. It's great to be here. It's great to see that footage again as well.
Yeah, you got those people moving. I mean, those young people, you got them into African traditions.
Yeah, I was starting
to dance. I'm really blessed that I have that kind of positive influence on folks, even people I just met. So it's something that I'm able to do no matter what environment I go in. And they immediately decide that they want to, move with me. I develop that trust. They have that inner confidence, because a lot of people don't think they can dance. And certainly if they've never studied African dance, certainly I can't do this. But simple movements from their seat added to the song, our rhythmic voices and call and response, it's something that we actually are quite familiar with. So, I'm really glad that they participate. And seeing the beginning of that festival, which is such a wonderful, wonderful occasion. And arts is really a transformational activity. So I remember when that room maybe had about 300 people when we first started. And then we saw that whole room. It's packed. I've had people now come from young people to adults. And they say, I couldn't get into your program. It was packed. Couldn't even get in the doors,
Yeah,
so it's good that it's had that kind of response and people feel good. I have to share, I got a really positive compliment from the manager of the hotel.
Okay.
And he came to me and he said, I love what you're doing with the young people in the morning. I love all the stuff, all the things. He said, do you know, my staff comes to me and wants to know if they can take their lunch break when you're doing your program so they can watch and interact. And I was complimented. He said, so anything you want, if you need anything, you just come to me. Because I think it's great. My staff, they work diligently. And then I periodically give certain people a break so they can watch and interact. And I said, well, you know what? First of all, I appreciate you recognizing the positivity that's providing and then allowing your staff to have some chance to actually take a break and enjoy it and interact as well. So that's, there's so many special things when it comes to that festival. But, arts is truly arts are magic, really magic. And so I say this, there wouldn't be anything without the arts.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, our bodies are artistic, right. What we have on, the things around us, the architecture, jewelry, furniture, everything takes an artistic modality, from speaking to singing to acting to carpentry to electronics to science. Everything takes a creative element, and it's all artistic. And our history is recorded in the arts. We'd have no history if it wasn't written, sung, danced, displayed in a play or some writing. I mean, it's all photography, video. That's right. It's all pretty amazing, but the arts is what records everything. We would not know anything about anything if it wasn't for the arts.
Yeah, because because the art of storytelling, as creatures of wanting to understand who we are, where we've come from, that storytelling tradition started out before there was formal theater and before there was television and film and the inventions for the technology for that. So yes, we are arts, and if you believe in a creator, the whole world was shaped and created, and people were formed and shaped and created. So through an artistic, mind, through a creation.
Element, absolutely, right, right.
Well, tell us a little bit about your background, because you're not only an African dancer, you're a poet, you're a vocalist. Just tell us a little bit about your background now.
Okay, well, I'll try and make it a short story because it is a long.
I know.
Story.
Right.
But the short version is, first of all, my parents are of African descent, Caribbean descent, African American, and Native American. So I'm blessed to have all those worlds in my immediate, bloodline. And I also feel that it gives me a good sense of connection with all the different cultures because I've been exposed to the perspectives that different people have coming from different cultures to come together, even though I was raised in the United States. But my father, I say I'm Nana Malaya, the dancing diplomat, one who speaks in parables. My father, Ebenezer Ray, I say he was from New York, even though his family line is West Indies and Ghana, West Africa. My mother's family is known to be from New York and Jersey. And of course, she does have Native American descendants. And we have traced some of our family lineage, not only to Ghana, but to Tanzania, South Africa, and to Cameroon. So, but I was my father worked for the Amsterdam News in New York.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And he got a job with the Pittsburgh Courier, which also, of course, Amsterdam News, a Black newspaper, Pittsburgh Courier, a Black newspaper. He got a job there. So we ended up in Pittsburgh. And so I ended up studying there, and I studied, I'm a trained opera singer. I had private vocal lessons. I'm a visual artist. I had private art lessons at Carnegie Institute, which is Carnegie Mellon University. I took ballet. And I was speaking with Kenneth earlier that Black dance, the only Black dance at that time
this is before ALE and the evolution of Black dance in its format now, was tap dancing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing you go to a studio to study. Now, Black folks, we've always been dancing, you know, from the Cotton Club to the Lindy Hop to the Charleston to all the stuff that we've ever done, you know, even the ring shouts in the church, all those dances we've always done, but in terms of actually in the studio format. So I started there, and I really like to say that as a ballerina and a Black ballerina, I was given a lot of accolades. I studied with a Russian ballet company. And interestingly enough, with that exposure, Catherine Dunham came and did a summer workshop. I'm the only chocolate thing in there. You know what I'm saying? But in hindsight, I realized they sent Catherine Dunham for me.
Right.
This is for you to learn some more about your heritage. She was doing Haitian dance. She had her, I didn't know it at the time, she had her doctorate in anthropology.
Okay.
You know, and she studied Haiti, and she also was initiated to be a Haitian priestess.
Wow.
So not only was she sharing the dance and culture, she knew the root. And I want to say that because oftentimes we hear about Haiti, we hear words like voodoo. Vodun as a word means spirit and religion. So it's been vilified for us to think negatively about it, but that's really all it says. And so what she did is she took the root in Haiti, which of course is the same throughout the world. When folks get happy in church, it's the same thing. You know, no matter where they are, it's the same thing. It's about feeling the spirit. You know, whether you have a ring shop, whether you belong to a Baptist church, whether you belong to a sanctified church, only maybe in the Catholic church and the Episcopal church is kind of quiet about feeling the spirit, but the energy is there. And so she took me from being a ballerina to learning about African dance. I studied a dance called Dambala, which is supposed to be a healing dance. And it's about the snake, which in pharmaceutical symbol of the snake is a symbol of healing, you know, not negativity with the, you know, Garden of Eden. So this was a dance, it's a healing dance that was done. And so that was the first one. And like I said, I hadn't been exposed to African dance, Caribbean dance, yes, but not African dance. But of course, you know, my body took to it just like that. So I realized that, you know, I was there, you know, of course, she was glad to have me come on up to the front of the class, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, get those movements and, you know, so even as I've taught ballet, modern jazz, and ethnic dance, I remind people that just for their edification, they should take a rigid form, which might be more balletic or modern, that's a little bit more, you know, staid and, you know, controlled. And then they should take a loose form, like whether it's jazz or hip hop or African, you know, dance, because the body needs to have a range of motion, you know. So, you know, when I was coming up, we were taught to be a triple threat. So, you know, that's why I learned how to sing. My name is Marion Malaya. I'm actually named after Marian Anderson, the famous opera singer who they wouldn't let sing at Constitution Hall in DC.
That's right. And at the Lincoln Monument, right?
She said, at the Lincoln Memorial. And on her 75th birthday, I think it was, I actually sang with the National Symphony Orchestra in her honor at the Lincoln Memorial, where she actually sang. So, you know, I'm really honored. So I guess my mom and dad knew I was going to do something with singing. And, you know, I sing jazz. I sing, you know, I used to do a whole lot of, you know, Broadway shows and those kinds of things, of course. You know, West Side Story, but also all those old shows like Oklahoma and those kind of things. But now, you know, now we have more contemporary. We got Dream Girls, you know what I'm saying? You know, we got The Wiz, you know, so it's nice to have those things grow. So that's the short version. Also, I came in touch with August Wilson being in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is predominantly white. I didn't realize how small the Black community was, but it's only about 10% of the population, I understand, 10 to 15%. But there were a strong group of us that were very mindful of the content that we wanted to put out. So I know for a long time, you know, I was going to be a ballerina. I was going to be on Broadway. And then Douglas Turner Ward came up with his piece.
Okay.
August Wilson, I met and was working with. And August always uses dance as a part of the theater component as well. So I was 17 when I started working with August Wilson. And, you know, we had a place in the community where we were rehearsing. It wasn't the best neighborhood, and my parents, you know, thought I was somewhere else, but, you know, but we were coming together just to create all those things that now, of course, August is known for. And I'm really happy to say that, you know, I was one of the first members of his theater company called the Black Horizon Theater. And the content of which he wrote about, it was always wonderful. It was always thought-provoking, and it was always embracing our culture. And so I've always been content-oriented. I always felt as though we needed to have things that represented us in a both a historic light, which could be both engaging, enlightening, and traumatic, you know, but also to be sure to give our broad history. And so that's what arts has been for me. So depicting whether it's Harriet Tubman, Queen Hatshepsut, different people to bring those characters to life. Then I also, I ended up going to Point Park College as a drama and dance major. At that time, you were actually allowed to cross-register. So I went to University of Pittsburgh and I went to Carnegie Mellon. Wow. And taking different kind of courses there in order to strengthen that content. And then, of course, I had a company called Pittsburgh Black Theater Dance Ensemble with Robert Bob Johnson. We started that, the Black Horizon Theater with August Wilson. So we really started focusing on the arts, and that became the main production for culture. When we traveled a lot, Kenneth asked me about Baba Chuck. Chuck Davis used to come down and teach classes for our dance company. We brought people from New York into Pittsburgh. We went up to New York. I mean, it was a constant exchange because at that time, we wanted to make sure that the arts it represented Black folks in a different way, you know? So, you know, so many productions now that are.
Well, I wanted to jump in and ask you a question. August Wilson's theater company, Black Horizon. What's some of the names of the people that I know of? Rob Penny and Ron Pitts. You know,
right. All those folks. Salahuddin.
Okay, I had a chance to work with Ron Pitts when he started a theater company in Columbus, Ohio. But talk about those early days with August Wilson and some of the things that you guys produced.
Well, one of the things I like to say in terms of dynamics, August as a person is really a very quiet person. Mm-hmm. So all of us, and maybe a lot of people listening, after a rehearsal, after a class, after a performance, artists always get together and they talk. And there's a spot where we're going to go here and we're going to get together. And so I laugh now because August was always in the corner somewhere. He wasn't in the midst of that crowd and that activity, you know? And so as things, as he continued to write, and then later on, with his evolving notoriety, I was like, oh, that's what you was doing in the corner. You were writing down all that stuff we was talking about and paying attention to all the dynamics, you know, of things. But I also asked him, because since I had lived there, I was like, I live here, I don't see these stories in Pittsburgh amongst the people in the population. And he told me one of the things, I said, so where do you get these stories from? And he told me, he gets them from the blues, from the songs, because the songs, and you notice all his plays have some root in a song and movement. And so in that way, we became connected because I used to do some of the choreography for his pieces. And even though they weren't big dance pieces in a production, it might just be a ring shout or, a hand clap and some other kind of movement around the table and other kinds of stuff. But those were very, very important parts of his production. And so the pieces really got to be known because we actually went into the community. So there's a couple of not only just theaters that we performed at, but there were schools where we performed at. Major theaters weren't allowing us to perform there, but we also went to the bars. And we would sometimes be sitting at a bar, and next thing you know, we break out into this monologue, and you think something was going on, but it was really part of a play, you know what I'm saying? And we started doing this play, and that was to engage the people, because the average person in the Black community is not necessarily geared to come into a formal theater space, you know? And so that's how we got them engaged, and we actually would do things outside. We would create stages outside and perform on stages outside a particular intersection. Somewhere around those 60s, they also created, I can't remember the name of it, but they also created spaces so the performances could be done outside in the Black community on a regular basis. You know, from model cities to, those are some of the names for some of the things, but basically to have stages set up in different areas of the Black community. So you could do concerts, you could do dance productions, you could do theater productions. And so all that, it was just a collection of minds, writers that really wanted to do something different, create something different, to see something different, because, we saw Leslie Uggams on TV. I'm going back away. We saw Barbara McNair, let's see. But, just one lone little person, So when Diana Carroll, for instance, was on Julia, that was major. We watched that. But there were not a lot of other reflections about Black folks on television and in theater spaces. So, I came up through a conventional theater space that wanted to say, Greek was the origin of theater. And my spirit told me that wasn't right. And then as I began to do more research, I came to find out that's not true. So we were reestablishing all those traditions in the 60s and the 70s. So that's really what that was about.
Well, I talked to the story.
Let me get my other co-host in here. Michelle Saunders has joined us. How you doing, Michelle? And the connection here, because I wanted you two to meet, is Lamont Rucker, who is Anana's son, who's going to be in a show that you're producing. So go ahead and take over, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, this is so exciting because when Ken was telling me that we were going to have you on the show, I was like, wait, are you serious? Because I have Lamont coming in teaching a master's class for our students in the community the following week, next Thursday, actually. This coming Thursday.
Yeah, I saw that.
At State University. Mm-hmm. And so it was really exciting. I do want to apologize. I was on set with another production today. It will be airing pretty soon. So I do have a question for you, though. When you're out there, promoting, the arts, the history, like the theater piece, like how did the community receive when you said you were going out to bars and you were going out to the park? Like, were they thirsty for that, or they felt like, oh, this is something else that I need to learn?
Well, they were definitely thirsty because at that time, the community in general was thirsty because there wasn't a lot going on. So, for instance, we're talking about the 60s. So we're talking about music like the Temptations were going to come on Ed Sullivan's show. Everybody stayed home to watch the one black and white TV so they could see the Temptations on Ed Sullivan. So if it came to any kind of theater, which was less available to the community than television and the music industry, they definitely were interested. And that's why we took it to them, because most folks, and even still now, that's why we do the Theater Festival in North Carolina. We're bringing the festival to a community of folks. And when we first started doing it, people were like just standing all over the place, like, wow, who are all these people and who are all these celebrities and what's going on? And, and we slowly got them engaged and inside of the theaters and inside of the spaces. At first, they were just kind of looking and watching. So the same is true because people were interested, and also the stories were engaging in such a way that people could relate to those stories. And that's why Black theater has evolved the way it has, is because we're doing stories that people can relate to, you know, and when they can relate to them, then they want to come and see them. And if you bring them to them, then they're like, okay, well, I might not have thought to go see this play. Well, maybe I'll go see this play at the high school next week, or maybe I'll go see this play. And we did have a few venues that were nice theaters in the Black community. Well, I'll go see that, you know, but that was just a way to get them engaged, because otherwise they might not know. And again, you know, theater, you got dance, you got poetry, you know, you have all those things that were really getting them engaged. And by bringing it to them, helped a lot.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you. I think like when all of us come together and we have events on campus, it's important that we open up the mindset, basically, not just the eyes to our students. So many talented people that are out there, whether they're in the front of the camera or they're behind the camera.
Right.
And I think sometimes it's overshadowed by, you know, the internet, the social media at some point. But let's get down to the meat and potatoes, where it all started from, or where it originated. So like when we bring, you know, artists in, whether celebrities or just, you know, just artists who are, you know, doing well for themselves on campus, I like the idea that it's the aha in the students in their faces, because it was like, did you not know they were the originator for this? Or did you not know this is where this came from? So, you know, that's what drives me, and with, you know, what we do, all three of us, you know, on campus, especially.
And even the history of dance and theater, giving it to folks. One of the things I just found out, and I'm the brothers that created the movie about Fred Hampton. I was a teenager, and I was very much engrossed in the civil rights movement. So was my family. Family's very political. New York, out of the country, et cetera. Okay. And then of course, Martin Luther King and, you know, and all that thrust. But unfortunately, when Dr. King got murdered, then the Black Panthers was definitely embraced more, because it's like, okay, look, the King of Love has been killed. So maybe we need to look at another way to protect ourselves. And the Black Panthers were about self-protection, not about assaulting anyone. And so people started researching that a lot more, as well as getting involved in the breakfast programs and things of that sort. So I was interested particularly in this Fred Hampton movie, because I was glad to see that was being brought to the forefront. One of the reasons why I think it's extremely important, because all the young people we work with, I want them to know that I became an activist as a youngster. I became an activist when I was 12, 13, 14 years old. There were a lot of people, including Fred Hampton, who was 19 years old. I think so many of those folks were 18, 19. Huey Newton was 19. Martin Luther King was considered old at 26, years old.
Yes.
John Lewis was considered old at 26 years old. They were like almost 30. That was like almost overkill, because you're talking about the activism of the 60s was a lot of college-oriented students and the young people before that. And even though the elders were included, the elders had more to lose. So the students were actually in a position to take a little bit more of the risk, you know, because they might not lose their job. They might have their parents threatened, maybe, but they were more in a position to do that. And most movements in most countries are led by the youth. And so I remind folks that even though I'm older now, I was an activist then. You know what I'm saying?
And they were braver.
You all need to, and of course now with Black Lives Matter, more young people are activated and are positively involved. And even in circles where you didn't know, there are definitely positive people involved at younger ages. But since most of the elders get a lot of the visuals and the press, I want to remind the young people that, hey, there's plenty of young people involved. We were young when we were involved. And then also you talk about, Michelle, the performances. I mean, that's what step dancing did for, you know, for our communities at schools. I mean, you know, stepping was done out on the quad, out in, you know, in the lobby where everybody could see, you know, everybody engaged in some way. So
And breakdancing, right?
so we're not really any different.
Yeah.
We're still very much those same people. It's just now gratefully now, we have a variety of things. I mean, all the things streaming, I mean, there's just like a million things, all these different streaming
Right.
opportunities.
Platforms. Yep.
And this isn't necessarily an advocate for the show, but I just saw something called Black Jesus, which is an interesting contemporary show. I don't know where I found it, but I was like, so I started watching a couple episodes. It's very interesting dynamics, but it's a contemporary show. It's a brother who calls himself Jesus. He's dressed in, the garb of the time, and he has a lot of things that he talks about in terms of espousing certain things. It's very interesting, but we have those. But the other one, and this is a plug, there's a show called Good Trouble.
Yes.
And John Lewis said, everybody should get into Good Trouble. And there's a show called Good Trouble, and it shows on Hulu and Freeform, 2 platforms I never heard of before 3 years ago.
Yeah, me neither.
That show is an excellent show. And it's a show about young activists engaged in the way the world is today, with so many different things. There's a young woman who's a lawyer, and, should she be working with the corporate legal system, or should she work with, a more community-based legal system, just those, but it's so well done. And then there's a woman who's a Black Lives Matter activist, and not only what she does in her life, but when she goes to her job, they're like, well, we see you're involved with these people. And then the negative kickback from just those kind of activities. So it's a great show. The Black Lives Matter activist happens to be my niece.
Oh, wow.
And her name is Zori Adele. She came out of Spelman. And then she actually went and finished her master's in LA. But she's been working on the show now 3 years. It is really an excellent show. It's such great writing. And it's nice to see a story that shows us in a positive light. Because very often, even people who are supposed to be positive characters, like a Black Lives Matter activist, they sometimes tweak the character so it's something either not real good about them, or there's something shady about them, or something else to discount all the beneficial things they do, but not in this case so far. So it's been great. So I would definitely encourage you all to look for that show, Good Trouble.
So you can't name drop. So now you're going to have to talk about your kids now, okay?
I know, right. So Zori Adele is my niece, and you can look her up as well. She's been doing a few things. I've got, people know, of course, my son, Lamont, and I like to mention that I started bringing Lamont to the festival in North Carolina when he was in high school.
Wow. Ain't that something?
And there are a couple of people that have been coming to the festival, and there's one guy who's a real good friend of mine, and I think everything was over. When we first started the festival, stuff used to close early.
Yeah.
Stuff closed at 4 PM. All the places to make copies was closed. The restaurants were closed at 10, 11 o'clock. You got finished with something, there was no place to eat. This brother, who was really wonderful, he said, you know what? I'm going to take you all. And we went to the store with him. He got food. He cooked them. And I'm talking about my son, Lamont. I have another son named Gary who was going to Fayetteville State. So I told him, come up from school.
What?
And he went and shopped and got some food and fed us all. Yep. He came out of Fayetteville,
Yeah.
And I have another friend of mine, Tendai Johnson, who's at Fayetteville State. So she works there. She may be in the Black Studies department, but anyway, just the fact that the dynamics just for that festival have changed, so that now venues are open longer, and we've got all these late night shows, because the show that was done on Huey P. Newton, that was done by Roger Guinevere Smith, there was no venue for it. And then it was like, it was so popular, it's like, we'll do something at midnight. And that started all the midnight readings, and then the midnight poetry slam. I mean, there's just been so many things, but so my kids are in the arts, but truthfully, I delivered all my kids. I had a dance class for pregnant women while I was, carrying them because I'm a dancer. So
Yeah.
I'm expecting, I'm like, okay, let's see. I need this experience to be positive,
Right.
So I started researching, and as I researched women around the world, including belly dance was initially done by women who had to be 3 months pregnant. It was a dance that women did while they were pregnant as a way to get prepared for labor and delivery. Now it does have its sensual and sensuous application, but that wasn't its original design.
Wow.
And the same for hula dancing. Hula dancing that we see as being very sensual and provocative, which it is, was originally done by the men. In Hawaii, New Zealand, Fiji, all those places, hula dance. And when you see them men do that hula dance, Sister Michelle, they look good. So they're starting to reclaim that. So as I've had opportunities to travel, and one of the ways in which I got the name The Dancing Diplomat, I had an opportunity, some friends in New York said, hey, they're going to have this big festival. And so like the Olympics, which takes people from all over the world, they had a United Circle of Artists. And in the United States, of course, nobody was going to go because it was going to be in Havana, Cuba.
Right.
So we had some quiet meetings, and anybody who wanted to go could go. You had to raise your own money, you had to go. So we left out of Montreal. It was the most amazing experience I've had. I met Harriet Belafonte, hang out with him a couple of days on the beach. Harriet Belafonte was like, don't believe any of the negative hype you hear about this brother, because he's trying to make sure that especially people of color who were held down by the previous administration are built up so they can be, whether they want to be doctors or dancers, because everybody is supported there. They pay the dancers just like they pay the doctors, and they have the best folkloric companies. They have the best balletic companies. I mean, it's amazing. So from there, I've had the opportunity to travel different places, including Hawaii and other, where I study the traditional dance of folks and find out these stories, because these are the stories, like Andre was saying, our stories are in the dance. Our stories is in the history of the dance. And sometimes it's in both the development and also sometimes the persecution of trying to do those dances and preserve that history. So, that's all there. But yeah, I danced, I delivered all my kids. So, when they needed a child for a play, it was like, okay, I got one. Okay, we need another kid. Okay, well now I got two. So, and they actually, my kids live backstage. So one of my daughters dances like myself. My kids all went to Duke Ellington School in DC when we finally moved to DC. But we lived in Asia for a number of years. We lived in California for a number of years. And then I have grandchildren who are also evolving in the arts and dance. In fact, my youngest daughter and her daughter and myself are all born around the same time. So I wanted to have twins. I think I had to have them like 20 years apart. So we're born at the same time. We're all dancers. We're all involved in the arts, still to this day. And my youngest granddaughter, her name is Faye Monet. You can find her on IG. She had a little girl who's also a dancer. So now we got 4 generations. Me, my youngest daughter, her name is Embalia. And Richard Wesley wrote a play called The Black Terror. The Black Terror had a very profound character. In fact, the main character in the play, that character's name was Embalia. And Embalia was a quote unquote revolutionary, but she was also someone who was talking about, well, what are we going to do with those people who are wanting to change the system? What about those people who are trying to sell out? How are we gonna deal with that? And she had that kind of energy. So when my youngest child came out, I didn't think it was going to be a girl, and it was. Her name came out of my mouth before I knew it was coming out. And but I want to share this poem. The full moon shone, and my daughter came to greet me. Humble, strong, determined, bold, the world's not ready to behold a child as forceful as the moon. 'Cause full moon shone, body tending. Her being beams with magic, love, and light. The world and her have much in common because the moon shines with its magnificent light, glowing, flowing through the night. The moon is subtle. There's no fanfare, but all know its influence everywhere. Just like the moon, this child is here to undertake, and you should know that besides your child, you're ready now. And that was for my youngest, my baby girl, Emily, and she's definitely a little fire spirit of her own. So she teaches dance and Zumba. She also went to Duke Ellington, so they all got, like I said, they live backstage. I mean, they could have done something else, but their dad was a dancer, drummer, and I'm a dancer, singer, so, they got out of school and, they came out of my womb and came to the studio. They danced while they were in my womb, you know what I'm saying? Essence did stories about me. I had a dance class that was called Malaya's Movement for Mothers. I did it for a number of years. I had classes and we had, pregnant women in my class moving and dancing. And this was before they encouraged women who now are being encouraged to be active and participate in sports and activities. But at that time, that was really against the grain. But, they covered me. And like I said, my kids, so they live backstage. I mean, they got out of school, they brought their homework and their food. And, we had, of course, dance class, then we had rehearsal, then, another rehearsal, dance rehearsal, play rehearsal, some other kind of rehearsal. So they were always engaged with all these people. So, they literally grew up with folks like August Wilson and Rob Penny and Dr. Vernell Lilly. Dr. Vernell Lilly and I became friends because she saw me dancing when I was about 8 months pregnant with Lamont. I was doing a production called Isis and Osiris based on the African-Egyptian historical story. We were performing along with, y'all ready for this? Alice Coltrane.
Alice Coltrane, all right.
Alice Coltrane. So we were changing some things up. But Dr. Vernell Lilly saw me dancing and she had to come backstage and say, who is this woman dancing? Look like she's about to have this baby. She's like, I think she got that baby on stage. And as an elder, she was quite concerned, but we became great friends, of course, and she became one of my mentors. And then as Lamont grew up and continued to pursue both drama and then formally through drama and education, she ended up being one of his mentors as well. So, it's interesting as that process, continues with Woody. Woody's a friend, like a grandfather, Woody King, So Lamont did several of his productions and Lamont said, should I audition for something that Woody's doing? I was like, yeah, you definitely should. I said, whatever you do the best you can do, whatever you got, And so I said, now you can tell him who you are in regards to me or not. I don't care how you play that one, but you just go and do your best. And he ended up getting a production. He was up for an Adelco Award for the production. I went to see it. And Woody was like, he was just bragging about this guy that was doing his play. And he was just saying how great he was and wonderful. And he said, and here he comes now. Lamont comes in the door and he's got about, most lobbies have a little bit of space. So Lamont comes into the lobby, but then he hugs me. And Lamont is so tall, he just covered me up with his hug, And then he uncovered me and we stand there like, arm in arm. And Woody's looking at us like, okay, obviously they know each other. So, and I laughed and I said, Woody, obviously you don't know. And he's like, okay, I'm not sure, because with artists, anything can go, right? I said, this is my son, Woody. This is my son. He's like, you dancers can't have sons this big. That's old. Clearly this can't be your son. I was like, no. I said, remember when I was younger in the studio running around with the little kids? I said, he was one of them. So,
Listen, you and Andre go way back. So, Andre, go ahead. Talk about when y'all met and y'all history.
Well, I mean, everything she was talking about, it's just great, the connections that we've had over the years and different people that we've known. The National Black Theater Festival in Winston-Salem is where I met Nana Malaya, and it was like she needed a ride to the hotel or something like that. And I was like, you know what? And everything had closed down, like she was saying early on. It closed down. Transportation, if you were from out of town, if you didn't stay at the main hotel, you didn't know how to get around. So I had been, working as an ambassador to anybody who would come into town and needed help during the festival. And so I took her to the hotel, and then a friendship struck up from there, from all those years. And then we were really looking and searching, trying to figure out Larry Hamlin, the founder of the festival, one of my mentors, the late Larry Leon Hamlin. He was really concerned about the children. What did we do with the children? But now, festival has to make money, so those are the adults going to these shows. But what do we do with the children? How do we groom the babies? And then Nana Malia spoke up and said, I want that. Give that to me.
Okay.
I want to figure this out. And Larry wanted her to figure it out. He wanted somebody to figure it out. And then lo and behold, we were able to use the Marriott next door to house this during the daytime, for the kids to come in and the children to come in and really have those seeds planted. Wow. And so Nana Malia has been very instrumental in that. I mean, I remember early on when we were all trying to find our place at the festival. Like, how do we fit in? Because we were younger then, and not everybody who had a theater company, they had taken their own space and territory and carved it out. And we were all trying to figure out how we're going to fit in. And so, so every time we would meet in Winston, and I would either be walking her over there to the children's festival, or we'd be walking on the way back. And it was so great to have somebody occupy that space, take command of the space and do such a good job. You guys saw the footage early on.
Yeah.
If you guys listening were with us early on, you saw the footage of that. But there's such a great event now, and we were glad that she took this off of our shoulders, because it was like, I've done camps and children's camps, but to do a festival and to corral and bring these children in with no, there's no structured like day that we have like a camp, but she structures it so that, every day. How many days do you do it?
4 days a week.
Yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Right. And that's a lot. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So while the children are doing that, we have shows going on. We have workshops, and we
classes, movies,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got the film industry there now,
And I was watching on the video how those children were being engaged, and even some of the ones who are sitting there who you think not paying attention, they're the very ones that will come up to Nana Malaya and then really want to be engaged. Next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you'll be surprised the ones that actually were drinking everything in.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I like about performing and teaching is just that response. And there's three that I like to relate. And one of them was, I was just walking through town, and this little kid came up to me and grabbed me around my legs, and I literally couldn't move, and I couldn't see him coming. I'm like, who is this? And he held on to me and he said, Mommy, this is the woman that told us we were seeds.
Wow.
And I was like, I just gave him a big hug. And so I tell a couple of stories, but I ended with the fact that they may try and bury you, but they don't know you're a seed.
Right.
And that a seed needs the right environment, and you got to put yourself in the right environment. So I talk about those kind of things. And then I have another way in which, and I remind them again. So remember, you got to put yourself in the environment, because if you're a seed, you got to be in the right soil. You got to get the right water, the right light, so make sure you're around the right kind of people. Those are going to help you grow, that kind of thing, that kind of stuff. Then there was a guy who sang, and the way the way it's set up, it's just that whole open space. And this young boy, he probably was only like 8 or 9, and he was a small statured 8 or 9-year-old. He sang "A Change Is Going to Come," and this is after Obama had been elected in 2009. This boy sang so amazingly that all the doors that you could see all the way up to the top floors, everybody's door open. Everybody was coming out like, who is this amazing child to sing?
Oh, wow.
Well, he came back a couple of years ago, and now he's like way taller than I am. He said, and he told me his name, he said, I'm that little boy that was singing "A Change Is Going to Come" when I was 9 years old. He was like 19. I was like, that's you? And he talked about how he was in school and how he was studying. His mom came with him and talked about how grateful she was for the opportunity and encouragement that we gave him, so to give him that, that And then And then one more story. I was in the White House just before Obama was going to be leaving. And I said, I got to go back in the White House. Now, I'd been in there prayerfully. Lamont actually had gotten an award from Brothers Keeper. So he got a presidential award. So we had been in there once. Another time, a lot of dance students, Debbie Allen, Judith Jameson. So a lot of my dance students were there studying. So the Obamas had a lot of great things for our community and our children. But this particular time, I was just trying to get in before he was going to be gone, you know. And I was like, I got to get in there while the positive energy is still there, right?
That's right. That's right.
And I had planned to go with a friend. She got sick. She couldn't go. So I was like, all right, that's all right. I'm going. And I had the pass and all that and got in. Anyway, the bottom line is I needed someone to take my picture. I said, will you take my picture? And I was just at the front door and I was just taking my picture like, I made it, you know. The young lady that took my picture, she said, "No, Malaya." I said, "Yeah." She was a young lady who also had come to be a part of our youth celebrity project in North Carolina.
Well, I'll tell you another story. A friend of mine whose daughter I trained to sing. I mean, I gave her some pointers about singing, but she was nervous about singing in front of you and a crowd. And she I forget what year she was in, what year this was. But she sang there with you and some other singers during the festival. And this past month, she was singing for the Miss Black Teenage North Carolina.
Oh, right.
So, I don't know how she did, but I know she's still singing. And the the courage that it took her to do that for the festival, she's still marching on, using her voice, and hopefully we'll do even more good things with that. Because she did want to be a singer. So so those are definitely. I'm real clear that one of my purposes, I'm real clear, is to be a motivation, inspiration. So people talk about being motivational speakers and those kind of things. Well, whether it comes from speaking or just engaging with folks, whether it's the stories that I tell, the dances that I do. Those kind of things, just to be things that, impact folks in a way in which they know they can stand up, know that they can make a difference, because, the world would be a whole lot better when we each feel as though we can all make a difference, Well, let's talk about that, because not only are you an artist, but you also help people who want to do things like that. So you and I were on the board of the DC Black Theater Festival.
That's right.
I rolled off on the board and am now part of the team that helps to kind of produce it. But Nana Malaya is still on the board, and so the lessons that we learned from North Carolina and being a part of the festival, we both now, and it wasn't planned for us to do this together. It just happened, and it's a situation where here we are now helping people to shape festivals and to produce arts festivals in their communities. And there needs to be more festivals, because a lot of times we get to the point where we're made to feel like, oh, well, there's one already being done in the country, so we probably should only just do that one. But it's like, no, there's room at the table for those in their communities who want to create arts festivals, whether it's in the summer, the fall, the winter time is a little tough for most places. But Nana Malaya is a person that, if you want a consultant to help you start a festival in your community, reach out, because there's also synergy in doing those kinds of things in our communities across the country.
Yeah. And also the one in Atlanta actually was an impetus from the one we had in DC. And she started looking at, we got inspired by North Carolina. We started in DC, and then she started one in Atlanta. And there are other people looking to do some things in their areas. And we'll see as it moves on. But we got to keep this stuff going, because art saves lives. It records history. It saves a whole lot of lives. So we need to make sure we keep it going. So
don't you have another question, Michelle?
No, I was agreeing. I'm just absorbing all of this.
Well, I do want to say that the festival in Tampa Bay also sprung from the fact that I was able to encourage the couple that had come up to the DC Black Theater Festival to do a show, and then they went home and started a theater festival. So it's
Go
catching
ahead,
on.
Andre.
It's catching on. You know, it's catching on.
There it is.
I mean, that's really what it's about. It needs to continue to grow so that each place has its incubation space, and then
Right.
you can come to a larger space. I mean, one of the writers for the DC Black Theater Festival was writing several plays, and she ended up being the writer for the play about Motown. You know,
Okay.
so I don't know if you remember her name. Unfortunately, I can't remember her name exactly.
Dominique Marceau. Dominique Marceau. Yeah.
You know,
Right.
so there's just so many ways in which it's continued. So we definitely need people to support. So, you know, I don't do a lot of stuff on social media except for Facebook. I'm hoping to, you know, develop some things like maybe a podcast and, you know.
So any young people out there, Nana Malaya needs a young, energetic person
That's
to be
right.
her assistant. And because we have Zoom now, you can do it from long distance. But but find her on Facebook because she's looking for people to help her. And this also not only helps her, but it helps you too to be one of those that seeds that gets planted in this country to be a leader in the arts by working under her tutelage. So hit her up, let her know that you're interested in doing that. So
well, listen,
it's time for all of us to develop that those youthful talents, so that we have people to continue as we continue to move up the escalator. Yeah.
Okay, I gotta ask the art question that me and you talked about before the show started, and that was, what is one piece of art, a play or movie or TV show or book or poem that has affected how you interpret and understand the world, and why?
Oh, we got deep. That's a deep question. Yeah. Yeah.
One piece of art, one piece of work that has moved you.
I'm going to mention more than one, only because it's an evolution.
What would you suggest?
When I was younger, it was West Side Story. Because West Side Story was one of the first productions that showed people of color, even though they were quote unquote Puerto Ricans, but they showed them as engaging community, and then things were centered around that. And when it came to musical theater, that was different at the time because everything else was just pure lily white, Of course, then there came Dreamgirls, of course, which we all knew what that story was based on, And again, in its production, of course, it's still alive to this day. I think one of the things that I think that relates is Black Panther, because Black Panther brought so much positivity to our African heritage, which has been so vilified in most of our lifetimes, that actually was something that came out so we could see figures. And it was funny because I had a friend of mine, I hadn't thought of it. She said, there's no light-skinned people in this movie. And it's funny because I hadn't thought about it, because coming up as a ballerina, that usually it was the lighter complected ballerinas that maybe got pushed to the front, or even in groups like the Rockettes, those are the only ones allowed in the Rockettes. If you had a brown leg, you weren't going to be chosen, because you wouldn't fit in. So that was an interesting thing. But I have to mention that my favorite play of August Wilson's is The Piano Lesson.
Yes.
Yeah, they're revising that.
Because I play the piano.
Right.
So
I think reviving that.
But all that sculpture, as a visual artist, all that sculpture on that piano, and the story in that carving, the story in that piano, the story in the fact that they had land. I mean, there was so much in that story that was profound, but it was also profound of the stories of the ancestors that were utilized to get activated by the piano to get rid of the negative energy that was haunting the house. That's a deep play.
Yeah,
that's deep. Yeah.
Really you know what I'm saying? That's a deep play. I'm like, whoa, August. You know what I'm saying?
Well, listen, we're gonna have to wrap this up, but can we go around the table and give her one last question, starting with you, Michelle?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you could give the audience three advice on how to prepare for a performance.
Hmm.
3 tips on how to prepare for a performance.
I have to say, because I'm also a minister, I got a whole lot of, occupations, probably about 27. So the first thing is recognize that God is in you. So therefore, your talent is already ordained. There's a proverb that says, you'll have a crown, nobody can tell you how to wear it. So if you can recognize and utilize your talent with confidence, that's the first thing you need to know, is know that you've been ordained to have a talent and to use it to benefit yourself and others, And I think that's the primary thing. After that, you got to study your craft. If you want to sing, and Black folks have taught themselves. Listening to music and learn and following the music. I know somebody who taught themselves how to play drum, taught themselves how to play the trombone by just listening to records and music and studying, because they didn't have the opportunity to study and take a private lesson with somebody. I remember when I was taking my opera lessons and I heard Aretha and I was like, I want to learn how to sing like that. My opera teacher had a heart attack. But I was like, I don't need to learn how to sing like Aretha, And if anybody knows Jerry Allen was a well-known piano player, jazz pianist. And I sang with her, and she actually transformed me from singing musicals and things like that in opera into be a jazz singer. So she used to play for me. And we were both at the University of Pittsburgh together. So it was
She got a great voice too. She got a great voice too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so there's just a lot of those things that people got to recognize, and they have to have confidence in their skill, and they got to study, and then between studying and having confidence, I think that's the primary thing. Prepare yourself for the opportunity, so that when the opportunity shows up, you're ready.
That's right.
That's good.
Andre.
Well, what's next for you as we plan and push past COVID and go into the reopening of America slowly but surely? What's next for you?
Truthfully, I'm in the process of a couple of things on the short end. I'm preparing, of course, for the National Black Theater Festival again this summer, DC Black Theater Festival as well. But also, I'm writing up curriculums so that folks can utilize the arts. I consult utilizing the arts in education. And so I want to write up some guidelines so that it'll be easier for me to say, these are some basic guidelines to use, because I know my most interesting classes were the classes that were done out of the ordinary. Where we acted out something, we dramatized something. There's just no way, you can forget that interactive. They say you remember 90% of the stuff you participate in, only 10% of what you hear.
Right.
So if students are only listening, or only seeing, I think it's 30% if you see stuff. I mean, we got to get them engaged. And as long as we have them engaged, that's, and I think that's an important part. And then I've had the opportunity to travel a lot. I've studied with some of the greats. I toured with Stevie Wonder. There's other people that I've interfaced with besides, August and those lessons. I want to write about those folks and, and put that down. I'm not quite sure what notation, what form, it might be called the Dancing Diplomat or something. The places I've gone. I've performed for the presidents here in the United States, but I've performed for the presidents of Ghana. I've performed for folks in Thailand and in Hawaii and in Japan. I mean, a lot of different places, in the world, in Scotland, a lot of different places. So, just kind of weaving those experiences together, I think. And then, that's, and then at the same time, I'm going to be doing classes, virtual classes, Zoom classes. So anybody needs some audition work or coaching and, presentations and voice, I'm also available, for that. So I'll give out a phone number you can text to, and that number is 638-9786.
Okay,
Let
repeat
me,
it
let
again.
me put it in the chat. Say it again.
202
202
638
638
9786.
9786.
Because I
Yeah,
think one of the things this whole year should have taught us is we have to create more of our own dynamics and more of our own in terms of what we're going to do. So I decided I'm making myself available for teachers and young people. And if I don't go to them physically, I can still be available, whether it's to teachers as a group or individuals or students, to be able to, develop, some of that talent. I'm doing yoga classes from my house.
oh
I
my
got a
goodness.
studio. I'm about to, this is the beginning of a podcast studio, Kenneth.
I know. I mean, let me just say this. You are a choreographer, a producer, a director, instructor. You're a motivational speaker,
Artist, yeah.
actress, you're a dancer, you're a writer, you're a songstress, you're a musician, you're a poet, you're a manager, you are the artistic director of the Nubian Theater Dance and Music Company. What is it you haven't done? I mean,
Oh, don't forget she's a minister.
that's right, she's a minister too.
And I say that I'm an interfaith minister. And I say that because I've always understood it's all one. So people don't need to be arguing about one thing or another, So,
Right.
no matter what your
But the thing is
there's
that
only
you
one,
love,
only one supreme force in the world.
that's right. But the thing is, you love what you do, and we in the arts, we love what we do. And just my final thoughts on giving advice to people to get in to get in the spirit of what they do and how to love it.
Yeah, I think folks just have to go for it. They really have to go for it, and then look into things. I'll connect some stuff because we're all trying to get things done. We're looking for funding sources. I'm writing grants and for so many things, and I'll probably give you some information that maybe, folks are interested in donating, maybe through a Cash App and something else, because we're the only ones that are going to educate our children,
Right.
So if we don't realize that it's up to us now, okay, there are people who think that Harriet Tubman and Rosa Parks sat next to each other on the bus.
Wow. Ain't this something?
Because they only have a paragraph about each person and not the whole history about that person,
Right.
Even folks like Marcus Garvey, and this is just here in the United States alone, hundreds of millions of followers, to donate and create, institutions and build a whole, ship. So that people's like, okay, you don't want us here, we leaving. That whole dynamic was powerful and so super powerful. And then folks like Ida B. Wells, who said, we're going to make sure you know what's going on here. And I'm going to make sure that but also recognizing that, we were the first to write, the first to read. Humanity began with our African seed. For 110,000 years, we were here alone before others were born. So sharpen your eyes and tune your ears so you know what you see, understand what you hear, because minute by minute, hour by hour, if you lose your history, you lose your power, because Aristotle, Galileo, Pythagoras, they got credit from what they learned from you. So sharpen your eyes and tune your ears so you know what you see, understand what you hear.
So, I like it.
Nana Malaya,
Yes.
thank you so much for joining us on Theater Talk Live. We really appreciate it. And we're going to lead the audience with a 5-minute video that you did. And where is this taking place?
Oh, actually, this was at the Kennedy Center. It was a production that they have, that they do free performances every day. Okay. And sometimes there are parts. So my group is a part of a production. Other times we're the whole entire performance. They've had, like, for instance, I danced with Fela's band at the Kennedy Center,
Okay.
And again, it was just free and open to the public. So this is an example. And this is actually one of my groups, my Nubian Theater group performing.
Okay. And join us next time on That okay. Well, join us next time on Theater Talk Live, and thank you for joining us. And I'm gonna show a video, and I'm gonna mute everybody. So take care, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Kawo elekwa, ashe, ashe. Kawo elekwa, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. We've come to greet you, ashe, ashe. We've come to greet you, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. You see, a long time ago, the king and queen of Ile Ife, would you say Ile Ife? They were expecting some very special guests like yourselves. Well, when special guests, you dress up in your finest, you have wonderful music like Baba Siddiqui, Baba Alfonso, and you create a dance of welcome. Well, the ladies took scarves and they wrapped them on their fingers and they created this dance of welcome. Do it from your seats, from your heart to the sky. Use your hands from your heart to the sky, from your heart to the sky. Now down to the ground, from your heart to the ground, from your heart to the ground, from your down, from your heart to the ground. Faster, up, 2, 3, and down. Lafia, ashe, ashe. Funga lafia, ashe, ashe. Funga lafia, ashe, ashe. Funga lafia. Take your arms to your right. We're here to greet you, ashe, ashe. We're here to greet you, ashe, ashe. Funga lafia, ashe, ashe. Funga lafia. Can I get everybody just to clap? They say I'm the original dance machine. Made from flesh and blood, toes and arms, muscles and bone, heart and soul, steady movement. I am sometimes taken up by sounds of drums. Yeah. Lafia, ashe, ashe. Lafia, ashe. Don't see your arms move. African aerobics. To your right. Now remember, everyone, take your arms and repeat after me. Say, from our hearts, with open arms, we welcome you. Say Alafia, Adekwe, welcome, Akwaba. We're here to greet you. Ashe, Ashe, Bunga, Lafia, Ashe, Ashe, Bunga, Lafia, Ashe.
All right. Good night, everybody, and thank you again.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.